Hello and what is up, YouTube? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, marauders and pathfinders, get your hype shoes on, because we're going to go running from the Nerf hammer today. So, for those of you who are new to Path of Exile and new to the traditions of Hype Week, we typically call this week in Path of Exile Hype Week. And the reason why we call it Hype Week is for one simple reason. Every single flippin' day, there is something to get hype about. There's something to get excited about. There is some new piece of information that comes to our fingertips, that becomes available for us. And we munch on it. We feast on it. We enjoy it. We essentially live for it. And that is Hype Week and the news that comes with it. Hype Week starts off yesterday with the news that there are going to be some very amazing assortment of MTXs that are going to be available for players that want to push themselves to complete challenges. And that's quite exciting. So, that was yesterday. The week starts off with essentially Grinding Gear Games saying, here's some in-game reasons why we want you to be excited about the upcoming league. And then about 24 hours later, they release the Game Balance or the Balance Manifesto document, where they take all of your hopes, all of your dreams, all of your aspirations, all of your desires for what the next league might be for you. And they just crush it. That's what they do. That's what the Balance Manifesto is really all about. It's about you thinking there's this feast of new information to enjoy, to excite your palate, and then you take a bite into the sandwich that is the Balance Manifesto, and you realize that all of the ingredients that you specifically requested that the kitchen not include on the sandwich have been included in the sandwich, and all of the things that you asked to be excluded from the sandwich have been included, and all of the things that you wanted included have been excluded, and you're just here with a sandwich of stuff that you don't want. That is what tonight is. Alright, so if you're a masochist, or maybe you're a sadist, maybe you like seeing other people suffer, which, that's fair. Fair play to you if that's the case. That is my expectation for tonight. It happens to us 4 times a year. We get 4 new leagues every year. Grinding Gear Games is unparalleled in the free-to-play realm of producing content for a simply unsatiable community that wants content. And they give us content on a 4-cycle basis. And so here we are. 4 times a year we get patch notes night. 4 times a year we get launch days. And 4 times a year we get an insight into the philosophy of what and why Grinding Gear Games is balancing things the way they are. So, welcome to wherever you are joining us from here. For us here in the central time zone in the United States, it is indeed the evening. Maybe for you, it's the morning. Maybe for you, it's the afternoon. Maybe for you, it's sometime in the evening. Wherever you are from, welcome as you join us for a live reading and reaction of the Balance Manifesto. And my tea is just about ready. Hopefully y'all got your tea ready. Hopefully y'all have a box of tissues so that way we can all weep together when the necromancer gets murdered. It's going to happen. Some of you have been saying, oh, Iron, the necromancer's not going to get nerfed. There's no way they could nerf the necromancer. Yeah, pretty much there's no way it's not going to get nerfed. All right, so I have been sparing myself from reading any of the spoilers here over the last hour and a half as I have watched the youngest offspring of me play soccer. The kids are in bed. I've got some off-brand. I won't even say what they are, but there's some toaster snacks and my tea. I've got cough drops here for when I run out of breath. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's dive in. Game balance in Path of Exile Heist. As with every league, we are making some changes to a few key mechanics that outclass alternatives or provide too much power with too little investment. This helps to keep a fresh metagame, encourage players to consider alternatives, and prevent us from having to raise the difficulty of Path of Exile's content to compensate for the small subset of builds that can trivialize content. So there's a small subset of nerfs then, right? If there's only a small subset of builds that are trivializing content, no, that's too generous of a reading there. They're saying there's too many builds. We need to keep it to a small subset of builds, right? As mentioned earlier here, and here, we're making changes to some existing skills and introducing new ones. Outside of these changes, we're only making a small number of balance changes in Heist. You'll be able to read them in detail in the patch notes tomorrow. But in the meantime, this manifesto outlines what you can expect. Okay. Oh man, I'm already having flashbacks to Harvest. Are you guys having flashbacks to Harvest? Do you guys remember Harvest when they gave us all of the patch notes and all of the passive nodes? And they didn't give it to us side by side what the changes were? I really, really hope that tomorrow during patch notes, if I could have one thing tomorrow, it's that we have side by side passive trees already ready to go. That's my hope for tomorrow. Okay, let's see what they give us. Path of Exile, Balance Manifesto, Ascendancies. We've lowered the offering effect on the Necromancer's Mistress of Sacrifice and on the Ascendant back to its past value of 50%. That's it? Guys, am I reading this right? Guys, is this it? This is the nerf? That's the nerf to Necros. Somebody tell me, don't spoil anything, just tell me this is it. Is this it or is there more? If this is it, I made a comment on one of Yoji's videos that if the Necromancer wasn't nerfed, I was going to eat a whole pie on stream. For now, that's it? Okay. No, that's a sufficient nerf. That's a really good nerf. You know what? That's the best nerf in the history of nerfs. And I seriously think that this is really going to bring Necromancer back in line. It's really going to curb a lot of the problems that have cropped up with about 10 different archetypes that are all being played in their best of choice ascendancy, which is Necromancer. I think this will fix it. If this is it, I think what it'll do is this will help keep a fresh metagame and will encourage players to consider alternatives and prevent the devs from having to raise the difficulty. I think this is huge. In fact, I don't think any of the starters that we're going to recommend this week are going to be Necromancers because of this. Guys, what if one of the starter videos we recommend is just like 6 builds that are all Necromancers? We've also lowered the critical strike chance and multiplier on Assassin's Deadly Infusion. Okay. And the critical strike multiplier on the Assassin's small passives. Okay. These two passives were making these classes too generically powerful for too many builds. You don't say. You don't say that Necro and Assassin were the two dominant builds. Well, this is further proof that it's a good thing that we look at the stats, and we do this on a regular basis here in the G3 community. We take a look at PoE Ninja and we just look at what players are playing and we go, hey, this is what's going to get hit. Glancing Blows. Okay, this one was going to be a pretty big one. I feel like we've been talking about this one like since before Harvest even. That was even before it was on the tree. It was just Glancing Blows was amazing. We've changed Glancing Blows to cause more damage to pass through your block. You now take 65% of damage from blocked hits. The Keystone combined with effects that recover life or energy shield on block were providing too much survivability for too little investment. Okay, so you're going to take 15% increased damage. Yeah, it's increased, not more, right? Yeah, you take 15% increased damage. So for builds that were in vulnerability, no, it's a more multiplier. Am I getting that wrong, guys? I thought stuff that read you take acts as a more multiplier, but it reads as like increase, right? It's a more multiplier for mobs. Okay, thank you. I must have it backwards. So in other words, builds that were invulnerable due to Glancing Blows now have a slight chance to die. Okay. I am okay with this. So Glancing Blows is still going to be really good. I think the biggest potential threat to Glancing Blows is not even a percentage change. It's its position on the tree. Glancing Blows' position on the tree is in such an advantageous spot. It is in such a great spot for anybody who wants to play block. Even if you're going with the Necromancer route, it's not that far away. It's not that far away from even other nodes that you might want to pick up as you're playing a block. Like, I feel like it might actually be the least advantageous, of course, just because of its positioning. It's the least advantageous, right, for Ranger and for Shadow. But I feel like it's a bigger pain in the butt for Duelists to go up there and grab Glancing Blows than it is for Witches. I don't know why that is, right? Their starting positions are both relatively equidistant to it. But I feel like it's a bigger pain in the butt for Duelists to go up and grab it than it is for Witches. Maybe it's just because of this. Maybe it's because Mistress of Sacrifice has been so good. So we'll see. We'll see here. This is going to be interesting. Between these two, and maybe that's what GGG is thinking. Hey, we don't want to do any Ascendancy reworks. Are we all on the same page about that, guys? Maybe I should do an entire discussion video on that. By the way, if you're joining us tonight, whether it's for the first time or for the 100th time, thanks so much for joining us. You can go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Make sure that you follow, subscribe, join our Patreon, join our Discord. Any other shameless plugs that I need to plug? Oh yeah, we're over on Twitch now too. So all that information is down below in the channel information. Thank you so much, Mrs. Draconis, for reminding me that. I've got to shamelessly plug stuff. I always forget. I seriously think GGG is over the whole, hey, let's rebalance Ascendancies thing. They did that for, what was that, for a year worth of cycles? I think that was 5 or 6. So more than a year's worth of cycles where they were balancing out the Ascendancies or balancing out. They were remaking or reimagining the Ascendancies. I think we're done with that. Those of us who are veterans of Path of Exile and have been around for those Ascendancy reworks, I think GGG is done doing that. I think this amount of changes, like this is what we've seen, right? Not just for this year, but basically dating all the way back to Synthesis. Like since 3.6, 3.5, and 3.4, I think were the last major changes to Ascendancies. So maybe what they're looking at now is they're looking at something like Glancing Blows and saying, hey, Glancing Blows is the problem. And if we smack an Ascendancy too hard, then we're going to have to rework it. So let's smack glancing blows, and that might save us as a development team work in the long run from smacking an ascendancy. Yeah, they're busy designing the new ascendancies. Exactly. They don't want to be messing with these ascendancies. They don't want to have to reimagine what the ascendancies look like right now, because they're using a lot of what their creativity could be used on for ascendancies in PoE 2. I think that's a really compelling possibility. I have no inside information. I think it's a compelling possibility that's why they're smacking so much stuff and changing so much stuff on the passive tree now, is because it's a lot easier for them to hit something on the passive tree than it is for them to hit something on the mini passive trees, the ascendancies. Okay, let's move on. Divine Flesh. The Divine Flesh Keystone provided an extremely strong defensive layer against elemental and chaos damage, provided you could get enough chaos resistance. We've lowered the amount of maximum chaos resistance the Keystone gives to 5%, making investment into maximum chaos resistance more necessary to get the same defensive outcome. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is more of the same. This is, hey, we're going to tweak this a little bit. We're not going to rework it. Tweaks and not reworks. Numerical changes, not necessarily removing a mechanic or changing the way the mechanic works, but just doing with some numerical changes. That makes sense. Okay. Enduring Cry. This war cry, combined with the Call to Arms Keystone, gave convenient defense with little or no player interaction. Isn't it little to no? Little or no player interaction? I don't know. Maybe that's a grammar mistake on my part. We're increasing Enduring Cry's cooldown to 8 seconds and requiring at least one enemy to be in range to generate endurance charges in order to increase the importance of positioning and timing during gameplay. Okay, let's get real for a second. Enduring Cry, part of what made Enduring Cry amazing is that you could start a map with your Enduring Cry and boom, you've got your endurance charges. Like right away. So we're increasing this cooldown, okay, fine, and we're requiring at least one enemy to be in range. That's kind of what's a little bit more scary regarding that. Not even saying that that's scary. That's just a mechanical change that actually changes the way how you play the game. You don't just load into a map and then start clicking your movement skill, and therefore you're activating Enduring Cry and you're loaded up on your endurance charges. Now you've got to be in range of a bad guy as you actually move around. And depending on your cooldown, okay, that could be interesting. It could be interesting. What's kind of strange to me about this, about the Enduring Cry change, like, I don't know if they're going to do this with a bunch more cries. Like, how often does Cry show up? Cry just 3 times? Okay, and it's all right here. So they're not going to do this with any more cries. What's strange to me about this is Enduring Cry... And none of the, like, last league was all about war cries, right? Last league was all about screaming at enemies and slams. From a design perspective, I'm not saying that's what the meta was. The meta was this. That was the meta. Necro and Assassin was the meta, right? Along with some tricksters here and there and some other things that cropped up here and there. But that was the meta. The goal, at least design-wise, as it was pitched, was, hey, we want to add some slams and we want to add some cries to the game, some war cries, bring back war cries. And really what happened was, or correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm just talking out of my bald forehead. What happened was a whole bunch of players who weren't war cry builds just slammed war cries in as additional utility, right? And said, oh, how many passives is it for me to get these different utility quality of life things for these war cries? Oh, yeah, that's totally worth it to get all of the benefits that it's bringing. So this is interesting. It's interesting that this is the only war cry getting hit. And I wonder if there will be buffs that will come to war cries tomorrow. Because otherwise, I just don't see people... Like, we don't have harvest crafting anymore. That's not a complaint. That's not a hot take. What else do the kids say these days? You know, I'm not saying, oh, fade me. Oh, no. Oh, woe is me. We don't have harvest crafting. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, the reality is we don't have harvest crafting anymore. a lot of the top tier weapons that players on average were playing with were achieved through harvest crafting. So if players are going to play a melee-based class or a Warcry style of gameplay that relies on weapon damage, I just think based on harvest not being around, we're going to see less players playing that sort of playstyle. It doesn't mean that the players who enjoy playing Warcries and melee aren't still going to play it. Those players will. Those players were always playing melee, though, even before the melee reworks, the last couple of attempts. So, I don't know. This is going to be interesting. All right, Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning combined with slower projectiles outclass the damage of other spells. That's all you needed to say. Right there. You don't need to say whatever else you have to say. So, has had its damage and area lowered slightly. Okay, but here's my question. Here's my question for the design team. Okay, if somebody was from GGG was right here and I was interviewing them, I would say, hey, very interested to hear about the changes with Ball Lightning. I'm not coming off as salty. I don't play Ball Lightning. All right, those of you who know me know I do not play Ball Lightning. So I'm not coming across as somebody, oh, I'm salty because they killed my build. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm saying Ball Lightning with slower projectiles was an optimal way to play that build, that spell. And because that was the optimal way, it's now had its damage and area lowered slightly. So, is the design philosophy, when a skill shows up as an optimal way to play it, outclassing other types of similar skills, does that automatically require a nerf? Essentially, the nerf and buff cycle of Path of Exile could be, wow, I feel dirty doing this. I don't even know why. The nerf and buff cycle of Path of Exile could be described as as GGG gives us content, players mess around with it enough to create a meta. GGG observes the meta, smashes the meta, gives new content, players then create new meta. GGG observes the meta, right? Like, we've got a cycle going on here. And I don't think that this is particularly poorly worded. I don't think this is under-communicated. I think this communicates exactly what this... It reveals to us exactly what the design philosophy is. Hey, here's the best combo. You found the best combo. Yeah, slower projectiles was even nerfed last patch. Like... hey, so here's a great combo between Ball Lightning and slower projectiles. How else are we supposed to be playing this? Like, what does the design team desire by lowering its damage? Is Ball Lightning just supposed to be a utility skill? In order to proc, like, curses and stuff? Is that, or to proc elemental equilibrium? Is that all Ball Lightning is intended to be? If I try to play with Ball Lightning and I'm outclassing other spells, what's the point? And maybe the point is just to rotate the meta. Maybe that is the actual point. Right? I'm not making a value judgment here. I'm not saying that's immoral or that's bad design or that's bad balancing. I'm just saying, hey, if something outclasses something else, that automatically means, hey, let's hit it. I'm just wondering. Okay, Spellslinger. Triggering spells with Spellslinger was faster and more convenient than other methods of casting spells while leveling. Of course it was. It now has a longer cooldown, but gains more cooldown recovery as it levels, making it more rewarding to reach higher gem levels. The skill now starts with a reservation override of 30%, scaling down to 25% at gem level 20. Okay. That's... What I found strange about Spellslinger, and I've said this since day one, since we first saw Spellslinger, Poet's Pens, right? Like, Poet's Pens occupied a unique space, they were unique design, and GGG said, hey, this is a great idea, let's put this on a gem. I think that's cool. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying, here's something that was truly a unique, and it was part of a unique, and it made that unique a chase thing if you wanted to build a specific build. And now that it's on a gem, it's like, okay, what does the unique do better than what the gem can do? Because the gem is more versatile, because the gem you can use with any type of weapon. It doesn't take up an item slot. You've got way more gem slots than you do have item slots. So that's just interesting. Okay, Redemption Sentry Spectre. Oh no, our Spectres! This monster variety had superior damage scaling and clear speed compared to most other Spectres, so has had its life and damage lowered. Oh, it's okay, guys. Kay and her Spectre build, she will figure out all of the other different Spectres to play. She does a great job with it every single league. Every single league, the Spectre playing community, the Necromancer playing community figures out, hey, what's the optimal setup for zombies? What's the optimal setup for skellies? What's the optimal setup for like these 10 different types of Spectres? So don't worry about it. Just because Redemption Sentries might be nerfed, they might still be best in slot for Spectres. But even if they're not, there's still several other options. And if you're unfamiliar with the other options, then you probably haven't done much research into Spectres already, because there's plenty of other options, right? Plenty of other options. Shoot, it wasn't until 3.9 that Redemption Sentries even came into the game. And prior to that, it was all slave drivers, basically. Maybe not all slave drivers, but the vast majority of Spectre builds. Is this where the slave driver comes into play? Yeah, exactly. Like, oh no! The Redemption Sentries are gone! What are we gonna do? I guess we'll just play the next most OP thing that's still amazing and didn't get slapped in the patch notes. Great idea! All right, Cluster Jewels. We've made a few numeric tweaks to specific Cluster Jewel notables that provided a little too much power. This time we're only lowering values on Precise Commander, Vicious Bite, and Vengeful Commander, but may make further changes. I have altered the deal. Pray I do not alter it further. Okay, so this means Hollow Palm is untouched, right? Hollow Palm's not getting touched tomorrow. Right? I'm not reading this wrong. We've made a few numeric tweaks to specific Cluster Jewel notables that provided a little too much power. And so then, those specific Cluster Jewels are Precise Commander, Vicious Bite, Vengeful Commander, right? Hollow Palm. See, why would I play a Warcry Slam build and use weapons without Harvest Crafting? If I'm an average player and I've got, let's say, 6 to 10 hours of gameplay a week, why would I force myself into hoping that I can get some like above average weapon, or that I can farm up enough currency to buy one or craft one myself, when I could just go, I'll just save up for a Hollow Palm Jewel and then I won't need to buy a weapon? I don't know. These are all hits, by the way, to summoners. These are all hits to summoners. This might be a bigger deal. No, never mind. It is. In fact, to summoners, it just is. It's a much bigger deal. It's even bigger than this, because these Cluster Jewels are used in a wide variety of builds for Spectres. For summoners, not just for Spectres. Okay. So I think that'll actually influence a couple of the builds that we're going to recommend this week. I'm just running through the couple of builds in my head that I've been looking at. I think that does solidify what I'm going to do and not going to do with a couple of the recommended builds. Oh, don't worry, though. Don't worry. There'll probably still be Necromancers. They just won't be those Necromancers. Okay, Vitality, Precision, and Clarity. Vitality has always had a value that seemed low compared to the power of other auras with similar mana reservations. Are you going to up Vitality? Are you going to buff it? Which meant it has seen little use outside of enabling very powerful Vitality-specific Watcher's Eye modifiers. We've changed the skill to have flat mana reservation and grant life regeneration instead of % life regeneration. It is now available at level 10. Their attribute requirements are now consistent, only requiring their primary attribute and 75% the value of standard attribute requirements. Various powerful Watcher's Eye modifiers for the auras that reserve a flat amount of mana, vitality, precision, clarity, have had their values lowered to match the low investment required of these auras. At the same time, we've changed a small number of other specific Watcher's Eyes modifiers that were providing large values of recovery rate. Okay, so somebody's Immortal build just got ruined in Standard. But I wonder if I'm actually going to play a Righteous Fire character this league. There have been a couple of uniques that have been those replica uniques that have come out. We'll see what the passive tree looks like tomorrow. But maybe Righteous Fire. Maybe. We'll see. Okay. Vol Impurity Skills. These skills have changed to grant maximum elemental resistances instead of less damage taken. This is mostly to prevent clever use of game mechanics with standard items that could completely prevent taking certain types of damage. Okay, so same thing that we set up here. More standard builds getting ruined. It's okay. Yeah, bye-bye Immortal build. Yep, it's gone. For now. It'll be back. Don't worry. Every time they think it's dead, it comes back. How many times have they tried to kill the Immortal builds? And every league, almost every league, I shouldn't say every league, almost every league, somebody figures out a new way. Like, but wait, if you use these 6 auras and you reserve this amount of mana, all while you all of a sudden activate these flasks and use these new abilities that are only just now added into the game this league, which hasn't even come out yet. I've already theory crafted a way to take no damage. Yeah, it's pretty great. I am not a big brain player, and so I love how big brain as a community the Path of Exile community is. This is a hot boomer take. Warning, hot boomer take. I think the people inside the Path of Exile community are smarter than Albert Einstein. Are genuinely more intellectual. There's your Rick and Morty IQ test. Neckbeard, fedora, get all your memes out now. I think you, the Path of Exile community, as a whole, are smarter than Albert Einstein. You guys figure out new ways to do things that should not be in the game. And the people who are coding the game don't even know they're in the game. I think that's hilarious. All right, ailment effect. We've changed some ailment modifying stats like chill effect, shock effect, chill duration, and freeze duration to instead apply to all cold and lightning ailments. This will allow them to affect the alternate elemental ailments sap and brittle. This affects some unique items, passives, and other item modifiers, but you won't care about it because you don't care about sap and brittle, so we might as well not have included this line. Yeah, okay, that's pretty much that. Projectile behavior ordering. We've changed the order that projectiles will perform special behaviors so that splitting now occurs first, followed by piercing, forking, I have to be careful saying that one, chaining, then returning. For specific mechanics that had chances to occur or not occur, you'll now be able to fall back on another behavior the projectile has. Previously, if a projectile had a chain remaining, the skill couldn't return until it had chained the last time, even if there were no enemies in range to chain to. Now the projectile will return and could still make use of the remaining chain if it hits an enemy during that return. That sounds like a great change. It sounds that way. Somebody's going to figure out a way, somebody on Reddit, one of the big brain members of the Path of Exile community will figure out how this is actually a nerf, but just upon reading that sounds like a good mechanical change. Like that sounds like an intended change that always should have been there, and why wasn't it there already? That sounds good. Reduced visibility and stealth. Sources of reduced visibility have now been changed to stealth. Previously, reaching 100% reduced visibility would make you unable to be detected by the enemy. Yeah, it was great. It was really funny. There were a whole bunch of meme builds that were built around it and included a couple of builds that could take down Minotaur without ever getting hit. It was amazing. There was one particular build I remember using the Arakali's Fang that it was like, hey, you're totally phasing, and your spiders, like the Minotaur, can't walk through your spiders because they're not impassable. And so he just stands there and he doesn't attack because Arakali's Fang spiders didn't have HP at the time. And I don't think they do now, actually. But they weren't targetable. They weren't hittable. So the Minotaur wanted to attack something, but he couldn't see you, and there were just spiders clogging his area, so he couldn't actually figure out how to do just any AoE skills. It was great. It was amazing. But anyway, they're changing that. While now at 100% stealth will have the range that monsters detect you at, while 200% stealth will reduce it to 1/3 of their standard range. Values of stealth have been adjusted to compensate for this. Okay, so essentially, yeah, we're still keeping it so that way you can't just be invisible to monsters. Right? You can't be a pacifist, run, and have other stuff do your stuff for you. Stuff will detect you. Stuff will see you. That's the goal here, right? I honestly don't understand. Can somebody explain that to me? Can one of the big brain members of the Path of Exile community who's smarter than Rick and Morty and Albert Einstein combined, can somebody explain to me, again, the design philosophy and purpose for having stealth in this game? Can somebody explain that to me? Why is stealth in the game at all? Can somebody explain that to me? I don't understand that as a concept for this game. It was a thing in Diablo. Okay. I mean, they take almost everything from Diablo. Heist. I don't. They needed a stat to fill up a unique, and then it proliferated. Maybe not. Why not? That's the philosophy behind everything in this game. Okay, sure, but I'll give you an example of why not. Right? There aren't ultimates in this game. Right? There's no cooldown based ultimates in Path of Exile. Right? That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist in PoE. So, like, just because something exists in other games doesn't mean it has to exist in this game. I personally don't understand the purpose of having stealth in Path of Exile. I don't. Because constantly when it gets used, I guess I should finish my argument before I say I don't get it. I don't get why it's in the game, because whenever anybody comes up with a creative and good use for stealth, like darkness farming, or like with the old masters and actually being able to get masters to follow you and avoid all sorts of unnecessary obstacles with stealth, or being able to combine phasing with stealth as a stealth mechanic as you're running through different obstacles. Whenever anybody historically in Path of Exile has figured out a way to take advantage of stealth or visibility, reduced visibility, whenever anybody's figured out a way to do that, GGG has come in and smacked the heck out of it. So from a design perspective, if all you're going to do is smack the heck out of something, why have it there at all? Like, if it's a problem for your design space, get rid of it. If it's not allowing you to be creative and do something fun and interactive and cool in your game, if all you do when you look at something in your game is go, this was a mistake, why is this in here? We just need to keep reducing its effectiveness. Okay, you're going to reduce its effectiveness until it's no longer ever effective and people aren't going to use it. I just don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm being an angry boomer. Hi guys, my name's G3 Iron. I like to make angry hot take statements all the time. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe it doesn't make sense for PoE 1, but it does for PoE 2. Wait, there's a stealth button? because they like having lots of mechanics, but they don't like the outcomes that are the result. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? They have a plethora of mechanics, and I think it's great. I love Path of Exile. I just don't understand, like let's look at this. What did we just read about these alternate ailments? Wait, where is it? Right here. Alternate ailments. They came out with that, what was that, 2 years ago? I'm going to look this up. When was SAP introduced into the game? 3.5, which was Betrayal League. Okay, that's now 2 years ago. I'm not, again, my passion here is not a complaint. My passion is not a complaint. I'm not saying this is bad and they should stop trying to be creative. I'm simply saying, look at it. What's the meme with the young lady who's like, alternative ailments aren't a thing. Stop trying to make it a thing, right? Whereas visibility and stealth, like, it was a thing. Why are you squishing it if it was a thing and people were using it and were having fun? Just get rid of it. If people aren't using it the way you want it to be used, then get rid of it. Okay. Enough ranting and raving about stuff. I just don't understand the design philosophy. One of you guys with a bigger brain will figure it out than me and explain it. So, all right, changes to mods which provide flat life regeneration. Okay, so we're changing vitality to give us flat, but now we're also changing what flat life regeneration does. Okay, so does this affect vitality? Probably. Flat life regeneration mods provide a substantial amount of defensive power at low levels, but their values are notoriously low for endgame play. The values of many mods, which provide flat life regeneration, have been increased by as much as 100%! Making these mods more competitive with percentage-based life regeneration at higher levels. Okay, we're playing Righteous Fire at some point. Lots of people are going to play Righteous Fire. It might not be the speediest build of the league. I'm not saying, oh guys, you heard it here first. Righteous Fire is the hottest, coolest new build. I'm just saying it is a very, very lazy, casual person's friendly build. You can turn it on and walk around Rayclast and little monsters as you walk around with your AoE, go die, and you pick up currency. Very easy. Very safe. Very safe. Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire, baby. It's still trash? It might still be trash. It might still be trash. But we'll see. We'll see. Righteous Fire might not be played in the same way that it used to be, folks. If you've seen any of the Righteous Fire builds that are being played in 2020, which some of you are instantly going to go, oh my goodness, Iron, there's 2020, who's playing Righteous Fire? You can just type in Righteous Fire builds Path of Exile. Some of them will come up as recommended from being this year, not just from, ancient lore in 2017 in Path of Exile history. There are people playing Righteous Fire nowadays. That's before all of these changes, so we'll see. Changes to the mod tag system. Uh-oh, this is a big section. What is this? During Harvest, we added the ability to view the tags of mods on an item by holding Alt with advanced mod descriptions enabled. However, further changes to the mod tagging system were required in order to support displaying tags in the long term. We have standardized existing systems that use mod tags to use the same set of tags, applied a simpler and more consistent philosophy to categorizing which mod should receive a tag, and we've also made a few changes to fossils. The primary goal of these changes is to make the effect of crafting functions that rely on mod tags more clear and predictable. Okay, so this is all prep for PoE 2. By the way, have you guys seen that video where I made the prediction everything's prepped for PoE 2? That's my design philosophy right now. Is everything that I read is they're thinking about, hey, how does this affect the game now, and how does this affect our work for PoE 2? From 3.12 onwards, the tags displayed when holding Alt, which were previously used for fossil and harvest crafting, will also be used by catalysts. The cannot roll attack mods and cannot roll caster mods metacraft. The new enchantments available in Heist will also use these tags, okay, as will all future uses of the mod tag system. Mod tags will also be displayed on unique item mods. New tags that have been added to support this merger are ailment, attribute, curse, damage, gem, resistance. The changes made to systems which use mod tags are as follows. Turbulent catalysts will now affect mods with both the elemental and damage tags. Other catalysts will use these new tags or existing tags normally. Corroded fossils and prismatic fossils now affect mods with both the physical and ailment or chaos and ailment tags, rather than the bleeding and poison tags. That's nice. That's nice. Bleeding and poison tags are no longer used. Good, because bleeding is a subset of physical, not physical being a subset of bleeding. That's good. That makes a lot more sense. Faceted fossils now use the new gem tag, which has been applied to all mods that directly affect gems, and the gem level tag is no longer used. This opens up new uses for faceted fossils while minimally impacting their existing functions. Bound fossils now also increase the likelihood of rolling curse mods in order to expand their range of uses. So hey, bound fossils are crap. We're going to add something that we think is good or might be of some use. Prismatic fossils no longer separately affect the weightings of fire, cold, and lightning mods, as these mods are now always tagged as elemental. The same is true for jagged fossils and bleeding mods and aberrant fossils and poison mods. These aren't functional changes, but provide greater clarity as fossils no longer have effects that aren't explicitly described. The cannot roll attack mods and cannot roll caster mods metacraft now simply use the attack and caster tags. Okay. Finally, the rationale used to tag mods has been simplified and all existing mod tags reviewed for consistency in order to allow players to reasonably infer what tags a mod may have even without viewing them directly. In summary, tags are now only added to mods which specifically and directly affect the subject of the tag. Some of the main implications of this include conditional mods do not receive tags based on the condition. Okay? For example, a mod that grants damage while on full life does not receive the life tag. And a mod that grants attack speed if you have dealt a critical strike recently does not receive the critical tag. A mod that grants a power charge on critical strike would receive the critical tag, since that is directly modifying the effect of the critical strike. Okay, so it's the thing that's affected on. Yeah, because it's conditional. So conditional mods, we'll read this again here, just this line. Conditional mods do not receive tags based on the condition. That makes sense. Any tag that is necessarily a subset of another tag receives both tags. Currently, this means that all fire, cold, and lightning mods are now also elemental mods. This isn't a functional change to prismatic fossils, as mentioned above. They used to also apply to fire and cold and lightning modifiers without explicitly describing this. A related concept is that all bleed-related mods now receive the attack mod or the attack tag, as well as the physical and ailment tags, since bleed can only be applied by attacks. Mods granting skills or keyworded buffs do not grant tags matching the stats of those skills or buffs. Previously, it was very inconsistent whether these tags were granted, but a more minimalist approach was chosen in order to prevent many mods which grant buffs from requiring enormous numbers of tags. Mods granting notable or keystone passives do grant tags matching the stats of those passive skills. While this is inconsistent with our approach to buffs and skills, it was judged necessary for the sake of cluster jewels. Oh, look, another big change in the whole rest of the game because of cluster jewels. All right, thousands of individual changes have been made to mod tags. So to assist with understanding the implications for item crafting, we've prepared a full list of the mods which can roll on items and their new tags. Click here to check them out. It must be stressed that most crafting methods are not significantly affected by these changes, but specific methods for crafting items with certain combination of mods may be impacted, and you will undoubtedly be able to find new methods with a little investigation. Okay, so PoEDB is going to have all of this ready, right? That's the hope here. This is a surprisingly small list. Because this is the mod tag. Like half of this post is the mod change. Am I going insane here? Am I wrong? Could we actually be looking at the first shrink in patch note size? Is that possible? Is that possible that patch note size could actually shrink? Does this make you afraid that patch notes could be brutal? I mean, it does. On the one hand, it might mean that, okay, on the one hand, it might mean patch notes are going to be bloated because they're saving a lot of what would have been said today for patch notes. On the other hand, it's possible, as has been the case in the past, that the Balance Manifesto is somewhat representative of the size of patch notes. And half of the Balance Manifesto is about tags. Like, there's no massive slap that's coming to cluster jewels. There's no massive... There's some significant, but there's no massive slaps that are coming to ascendancies. Like, only 2 ascendancies are getting tweaked. So Trickster is just going to be king? Like Trickster and Necro? I mean, that's... Like, this isn't a big smack to the spell-slinging ED Contagion guys. I think Trickster is still going to be really good. Yeah, ED, yep. ED Contagion. I think there's going to be a ton of people running around with ED Contagion. This is a hit. This is a significant hit here to the most dominant meta Spectre build. But I feel like this is the bigger hit to Spectre builds overall. Even over top of this. I think this is it's relatively nothing. Yeah, Cyclone, woohoo. Yeah, Cyclone will be fine. I mean, there's no, like, Cyclone's not mentioned here. I mean, GGG's general philosophy is we don't want to tweak any difficulty, so we will nerf what is powerful and keep what is okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a pretty as a general statement, sure. It's a pretty general statement. We could all find exceptions to that. I think the details regarding these things comes tomorrow. I mean, patch notes come tomorrow, so that's a really hot take right there. I think we'll get details on patch day. I mean, we will. Those 3 cluster jewels were big in most Spectre builds. Yeah, I agree. Like, this is bigger than all of this and all of this. Like, this is bigger for summoner players. I'm just wary of patch notes will be crying towel time. They are laying too low. I don't know. Spellslinger is unusable. Okay. I mean, if you say so. Go for it. I think we're still going to see some players having significant success with this. I could be wrong. I am not the biggest brain player. I'm just the biggest balding player. That's all I am. If you're looking for the most bald hot takes, this is the place. Yeah, it's from 20 to 30. It's big. I'm not saying it's not big, but I don't think that kills the playstyle. I don't think so. I think it'll still be playable. I think people will just have to make some sacrifices. I don't think it kills the playstyle. Yeah, rip the Spectres. Yeah. I mean, Redemption Sentries. So here's the great news. If you want to play Spectres, this league, in Heist, stuff is going to be really cheap. because everybody is terrified. Everybody's terrified of it. Yeah, exactly, Fossey. You adjust your tree and you go for it. A lot of players, Fossey, don't know how to do that. A lot of players in Path of Exile don't know how to look at this information and go, oh, how would I change my build because of this? Or, oh, how would I change my build because of that? Or, oh, what do I do when my build guide says use these cluster jewels and they're no longer that great for me to do? Remember, they didn't say these cluster jewels aren't going to be available in the game anymore. They're just tweaking the numbers on it. We don't know if that means that it'll be like from a 12% to an 11% or from a 12% to a 4%, right? We don't know. We don't know. Here is the reality. I will say this. Okay, so I said it earlier in the night. I said it earlier in the night, right? I've been complimentary to the Path of Exile community so far. Path of Exile community, I think, is smarter collectively as a whole than Albert Einstein, smarter than Rick and Morty. That being said, the vast majority of Path of Exile players would rather be told how to play their character than figure out how to play their character. That's the reality of it. Right? I don't think I'm saying anything that is revolutionary here. I think everybody is aware of that. That's why on the forums there are so many different build guides out there. It's one of the reasons why so many different people watch people play on Twitch. It's one of the reasons why some of the most popular videos, every single league for every single Path of Exile channel are build guide videos and are build related videos, because people want to be told what to do. They don't want to have to think and figure it out. And that's fair. I think that's fair. I'm not making a moral statement here about that's good or that's bad. That's an observation. So I'm saying for you guys who are here, who are a part of the baldest community in Path of Exile, we're a small subset of the big, massive gaming community that is Path of Exile. I'm saying you guys can have a leg up if you're going to play a couple of these builds, because a whole slew of the Path of Exile community is going to look at these changes or look at these previews of nerfs and go, oh, definitely not playing that. Oh, X that off the list. Oh, no way. That's a do not enter sign. And there's a lot of you out there who do know how to adjust your builds. And so you go, hey, you know what? I think my build can overcome this. Hey, you know what? I think I can tweak this thing with a couple of different items or a couple of different changes to my passive tree or maybe a different ascendancy, and I think I can overcome these changes with my particular build. It's not going to be the exact same build, but I think I can make these changes and overcome these particular changes. That's part of the cycle of the nerf and buff cycle that is content coming out, content being tweaked, content being nerfed, players establishing new metas. Like this is what happens. This has been the life cycle of Path of Exile since its release. Is players who are able to tweak their builds and still use amazing utilities to strengthen or augment a core spine of a build. Right? You find your spine, that spine is incredibly strong. And what we're seeing here tonight, at least what I'm seeing, what I'm observing, is that the spine of a lot of builds is still going to be fine. Like, you want to go play Power Siphon? Go play Power Siphon. It's going to be cheaper now. Bunch of people are looking at Power Siphon Assassin and being like, oh no! Go play Power Siphon Assassin. You want to play Kinetic Bolt, Kinetic Blast, you want to go play COC, go play it. Go play it. Like, it's still going to be a thing. And in fact, to some of you in chat who are saying, yeah, why make it harder on yourself? It's not making it harder on yourself. It will be easier if you're playing in Trade League, because these things will be more affordable now than they were previous League. Yeah, this I think, as a numerical change, if it's not moving on the passive tree, it's no longer going to be the glancing blows is no longer going to be the no-brainer. I instantly take it and my build gets twice as tanky. Now it might be a close to no-brainer and my build gets significantly more tanky. I still think a bunch of people are going to take it if it's in that same spot. I still think this is going to be a strong keystone. Thing is, nothing was as hard as Delirium, and normal mapping feels like a breeze in comparison. Nobody should really be worried, honestly. Rant, you are absolutely right. Amen. If you played a build during Delirium and you could survive through Delirium, like, this is fine. Like, I know the whole concept here is again, the philosophy statement is this helps to keep a fresh metagame, encourage players to consider alternatives, and prevents us from having to raise the difficulty of Path of Exile. Like, all they've done over the last year, the entire Atlas of Conquerors of the Atlas expansion has been about raising the difficulty, right? From 3.8 to 3.9, they significantly raised and increased monster defenses from 3.8 to 3.9. So, increased monster defenses. They added on a whole bunch of new bosses and a whole bunch of new ways for us to approach the Atlas. Then they added one of the most risk-reward, push-your-luck sort of league designs in Delirium that we've ever had. Like, there's been a ton of really difficult content, at least in terms of comparison to other Path of Exile expansions and other Path of Exile content. There's been a lot of stuff that has been really, really challenging over the last year that they've been pumping out. Again, a lot of you in our community, in the G3 community, a part of the boldest community in Path of Exile, it's not necessarily difficult for y'all because y'all are incredibly intelligent people who look for your own build guides. You listen to sources that you know you can trust. And when your sources you know you can trust are full of crap, you're like, nope, they were full of crap on that. I'm going to go find another source. That's partly why you guys are so great at the stuff that you do, is because you recognize and can identify, hey, this is a good piece of information, I should follow it. Hey, this is not a good piece of information, I should throw it out. So the game has gotten more difficult over the last year. There's a lot of players who are new as well, who are new to the G3 community, but who are new to Path of Exile in general. And they've come into Path of Exile not at the most confusing or convoluted time to play Path of Exile, but at a time when things are at an all-time high of monster difficulty. At least since release, right? At least since official release. You know, there were some monsters before official release that the game was just ridiculous. I just thought of a new twist to my Necro. Thanks, GGG. There you go, Chaotic. Go run with it, man. Yeah, I think what this does is this reestablishes Poet's Pen as an option. Like, when Spellslinger was introduced, it was like, okay, what's the point of having Poet's Pen in the game? I mean, it's a nice little leveling gem, but you can, or leveling weapon, but you can do that with other weapons. You don't need to do that with, you don't need to level with Poet's Pens. If you got Spellslinger as the gem. I think this is going to be fine. I think it ultimately comes down to speculation. We've got to speculate at this point because we don't know patch notes, right? Everybody for the next 24 hours is going to be spamming Bex. Patch notes when? You don't need to spam her. They're tomorrow night. That's when they're going to come out. We're going to be doing a live reading right here as soon as I get all my kids to bed and all my work done. But the speculation now that we've got to live in, the tension that we've got to live in now is, are these little, I'm going to call this a mini manifesto. This really is a mini manifesto. Like, look, as you scroll down, it's like a page and a half, but this is all, that's all tag stuff. So either there's going to be just a massive amount of nerfs coming across the board in the patch notes, which is fair. That does happen. I have to say that. That happens a lot, and it does frustrate me, but that does happen a lot. I can remember at least the last two patch notes readings, both for Delirium and for Harvest. There have been some more detailed nerfs described in the patch notes than were mentioned in the Balance Manifesto. And sometimes that's, you know, maybe that's another good question for Bex and the community design team at GGG. Just by a way of learning communication patterns. Like, hey, can you teach me, like, what's what is your input when you're thinking about, hey, this should go in the balance manifesto versus this should go in the patch notes? Like, what's the difference there? What qualifies as this is balance manifesto worthy and this is patch note worthy? Or we're not going to put this in this because we want to keep it over here. Or we're going to have a line in here on the patch notes and we need to justify it in the balance manifesto. So that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see, in my opinion. Okay, so a couple of shameless plugs that I need to announce. We do have over on, let's see here, over on our Patreon page. Where is this? Where's our posts? There it is. Nope, that's just a picture. I don't want the picture. I want to see the registration. There we go. All right, there's our registration. Our registration is live for the G3 Heist Bank registration, okay? So if you want to join the G3 Bank, if you want to be a part of the hedge funds, then all of that information is available on our Discord. So if you want to join the Discord, there is Discord. There's Discord join information down below in the channel description. You can head over there if you want to participate in the G3 Bank for Heist. That is one spot that you could go. Also, another thing that I would like to do here tonight, since I've got time, and tomorrow I'm not going to have time, because we've got patch notes, and then after patch notes, it's all going to be about designing league starters. I'm going to look up here really quick. What are all the league starters that we've designed, or that we've recommended, not that we've designed? What are all of the different league starters that we've designed over the last couple of years that we've put together and recommended and said, hey, these are good league starters. Other people have built these league starters, and these are really, really good. Hey, what's up, Shack Central? There you go. You got one in mind? Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so you know what? I feel like we're PoE players. We should probably min-max this. So I should probably do this as like a spreadsheet, shouldn't I? Let's do this as a spreadsheet. That would be a fun project. Let's do this. What are we going to call this? League Starter Recommendations. That's what we're going to call it. Call it League Starter Recommendations. And let's go take a look. Let's go take a look at the league starters that we've recommended and see if they've been any good. Oh my goodness, that's probably too bright for you guys, right? It's probably way too bright. Here, I'll do this. There we go. Did that make it better? Hopefully that made it better. We use white text and a black background. Does that make that better? All right, so what classes do we have? We've got the Marauder. We've got the Duelist. Wait, why is my color always changing? Why is my color always changing? There we go. What do we got? We got Marauder, Duelist, Ranger, Shadow, Witch, and then Templar, right? Oh, and Scion. SC for Scion, right? Okay, so how many different builds over the last couple of leagues have we recommended as starters from each of these? So let's take a look here. Here was Harvest. Let's see what we recommended. Let's put this next to each other. All right, so in Harvest, we recommended 2 Templars. Wow. 2 Templars, 1 Ranger, and Shack Central, that was your Occultist. That was Harvest that we recommended. Which was an amazing build, by the way. If you guys are still looking for anything to play as a league starter, I would still go back and recommend that. The only thing Vortex gets hit by is the Glancing Blows minor nerf. I'm halfway done with the guide update already because nothing else for it is going to change in the patch notes. That's great news. That's great news. Hey, what's up, Cowsad? Yeah, It's a really, really solid build. It was also a great playstyle, right? It was a very, very safe playstyle. I enjoyed that. All right, so that was Harvest. But then we also did this. This Harvest was the first league where I was like, hey, I'm going to split this up into like two focused starter videos. I guess what I was trying to do was to say, hey, there's a bunch of starter videos that deserve more time, and so I want to try to give everybody more time for each of these different build archetypes. So Harvest, we did 2 Marauders and then another 2 Witches. So that's 3 Witches. All right, so let's do a total here. So equals sum of what? Of 3, of B3 through what? G3. So what do we do? We recommended 8. Okay, Delirium. Delirium. Can I zoom out on this page? A little bit more? Probably too much. All right, Delirium, what did we do? We did a Marauder, a Duelist, Ranger. Did we do it? Yeah, we did a Ranger. We did a Shadow. Wait, that's Blight. I'm looking at Blight. Oh my goodness. This is what happens when you're a boomer, guys. Your eyes start to go. We did one of each. Yeah, we did one of each for Blight. Look at the equality in Blight. Man, Blight was a very, very equal opportunity league in terms of recommendations. Okay, before that though. Delirium was our champion starter. Yeah. No, this was one from each as well. This was one from everybody except Scion. Scion's over there crying in a corner. Oh, wait, this needs to go through H. Oops. Because, you know, Scion is a thing. Alright, so there was Blight. Didn't I do some for... I guess I didn't do any for Metamorph. Did I not do any for Metamorph? I guess I didn't do any for Metamorph. Okay. Synthesis. Let's go take a look here. Synthesis. We did Marauder. Oh, I did 2 for Synthesis. That's interesting. I did not remember that I did 2 for Synthesis. I thought Delirium was the first time I did 2. I guess not. There goes my memory. And then 1 for Shadow. Yeah. But this is technically Flashback. Maybe that's why I didn't remember it. Okay, so there was a Duelist. Oh, I did 1 from each. I did 1 from each again. Okay, that's fair. So far, pretty equal opportunity. Although that was not for Synthesis, True Synthesis. That was for Synthesis Flashback. Okay, was Metamorph the league where I just did individual ones? I think it was. What's the date on this? Make sure it's muted. Oh my goodness, look at that guy. What's the date on this? Where do I see the date? Where do I see a date? Ah! I don't care about the views. I want to see a date. I'm going to report this for not showing me a date. Okay, here we go. Synthesis. Synthesis League starters. This is Synthesis with no flashback. Which, by the way, was the single greatest. The single greatest. This is not the greatest league. This is just a tribute to Synthesis. We did what? We had a Marauder, we had a Duelist, we had a Witch, and we had a Templar. So we only had 4. We only had 4 recommendations that league. Wait, was this not the... Did I do another one for Blight? 6 potential builds for Blight. Is that an additional to this one? Oh, because it might have been... Yeah, it was the potential builds versus the actual builds. Okay. I think Metamorph, I did 3 individual videos. I think that's what we did for Metamorph. Okay. So Metamorph was, there was a Templar. There was the, whoops. No, that's Templar. There was the Trickster. And then I think it was a Champion. Was it a Champion? Yeah, the Impaled Champion. Okay. So if we look at the trend, these are not quite historically accurate, because Metamorph should be like in between here. All right, so let's look at total of all of these. And this will tell you. All right, we've recommended a total of 35 league starters over the last, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 plus cycles. Didn't I have Legion starters? Did I not do Legion starters on here? Maybe I didn't. Nope, that's flashback. Did I not do... I don't think I did league starters for Legion. I think... Am I remembering right? I think Legion was one of the first leagues that we did the... I think that's why. I believe if I'm recalling correctly, Legion was one of the first leagues that we did the G3 Guild Bank. And we opened it up to a whole bunch of folks. And so I think my focus was pretty much all on getting the bank prepped. I think that's why. Stealth should not be in any action RPGs. It starts with action. I mean, that's kind of what I was ranting about earlier. I just don't understand why they keep nerfing it if it's supposed to be in the game. Marvel Heroes has a few stealth characters. They're fun to play. But my point is if stealth is whenever stealth has been a legitimate aspect to Path of Exile, it gets nerfed. And they're even changing the visibility mechanic now. They're calling it specifically stealth. Like, maybe there's going to be an ascendancy that will play around with stealth and we'll get all kinds of buffs. Like, maybe if you have at least 200% stealth, while you have 200% stealth, your critical strike multiplier equals, or is added onto your stealth multiplier, or rather the opposite, right? Like, maybe, while you're at 200% stealth, add your stealth percentage modifier onto your critical strike multiplier. Something that's just ridiculous, right? That would be a really, really cool concept as an assassin character that's like, hey, while you cannot see me, I do a whole bunch of extra damage. Here's the problem with it. The problem with it is within 2 minutes of us talking about that as a particular concept and potential idea, which could be very, very cool, all of us are going to go, okay, well, if I'm a ranged character and I'm outside of something's vision, it's technically not visible to me, and now this is just a massive buff to ranged characters killing stuff off screen again. So while we might think of it as a cool way to play up the stealth aspect of a character, while stealth in general exists as not being detected by an enemy, like exists for not being on the same screen as an enemy, then you can abuse it that way. So there's always problems and solutions in game mechanics. But as with all things in PoE, it's always about min-maxing, right? And being farther away from something is almost always better than being next to it, defensively, for your own purposes of staying alive, for XP as well as for efficiency for clearing things and not having to reload back into your hideout and jump back into a map. So it'll be interesting. All right, so total we have recommended, it appears to be actually, wait, this is, have I really recommended this many? No, these are the Scions, these are the Templars. Okay. There we go. I'm getting confused here. Ranger. Apparently I hate Duelist. Did I spell that right? I probably misspelled Marauder. Apparently I hate Shadow and Witch. No, wait. Yep, nope. Shadow and Ranger is what I hate for League starters. Two of the squishier characters in terms of their positioning on the tree. Well, there you go, folks. For those of you wondering, hey G3 Iron, what are you going to be league starting? And what will your recommendations be later on this week? I mean, this gives you a pretty good indication. Probably going to recommend something Templar, probably going to recommend something Witch, and then probably going to recommend something in the Marauder. That's probably where I will recommend stuff. That's the most likely, as it were. Ranger is a rough league starter unless you're doing poison. Shadow is pretty easy to league start. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. What's interesting to me about Ranger conceptually is that Pathfinder is in the Ranger tree. And you would think building most of your build around 5 items, which are your flasks, which maybe other characters aren't necessarily, as interested in investing in. If you are using and abusing your 5 flask slots, and that's where you're dumping your currency, that's where you're dumping your time, that's where you're dumping your character, then you would think it would be really, really good as a league starter. Because you're not necessarily competing with other players for like the best weapons or the most unique gear or this, that, or the other thing. Like, you just want to get your flasks up and going. And once your flasks are up and going, that's a massive part of your character. So it's kind of interesting that Pathfinder, for better or for worse, is oftentimes, not a top tier pick, right? So it's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting. All right, so we've recommended 35 different guides. I wonder how many of these guides. I'm gonna say the boomer thing. I wonder how many of these guides I could go back and just re-recommend, and how many of them would actually still be applicable. Like, how many of these guides stand the test of time and are still really strong builds? Some of them for sure wouldn't be, but some of them might be, and that would be pretty interesting. Saboteur is always an easy league starter. Yeah, it's interesting when everybody jumps on the Saboteur league start train, and then it's interesting to see how rich people get when they drop a Tremor Rod. Because the entire league wants to buy a Tremor Rod. Like, Tremor Rod drops, 90% of the league want to know your location. That sort of thing. Arc Witch will never die. I don't know, Cracking Lance, man. Will Cracking Lance turn out to be another kinetic bolt? That's the question. Because a lot of people when Kinetic Bolt was previewed, big time streamers, big time influencers in the Path of Exile community were like, oh man, that looks really cool. Visually, that's amazing. Visually, that's stunning. And then people started to play it and were like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this other thing that's way better. This is going to take way too much to scale into for a starter. And then a lot of people never went back to it. So we'll see. Is Spellslinger dead now? No, Dig. It's not. It's not. I think it's going to be fine. Some people are already declaring that it's dead. I think it's going to be fine. I think players who know how to adjust and who know how to interact with a build and who know to make changes will be able to make changes. I think if nothing else has taught me that lesson, that the Path of Exile community is fine min-maxing and changing and optimizing things, if there's one thing in the last year that I could point to, I would point to that Guardian meta where everybody was playing the aura stacking Guardian. And so many players had to learn, okay, what mana reservation needs to be in my amulet slot? What mana reservation needs to be in my helmet slot? What mana reservation needs to be on my tree? How many of this stat do I need in order to equip this particular gem type? Players were min-maxing the heck out of that aura stacking build, right? And players were able to do it. Such that Guardian, which had not been in the meta for several different leagues, all of a sudden was all the rage, right? Because players showed other players how to make this build work. Even though up until that point in time, it was like, oh man, that would be really tough to make all this work. Well, once a couple of people figured out how to make it work, that information disseminated. And within about a week, we saw a change in the meta go from, I believe Guardians were like 1% or 3% of the league, and they jumped up. They were what, 35% of the league or more within like a week? So that's an example that I point to say that some people look at nerfs and they go, oh, this thing is dead. And other people look at nerfs and go, okay, well, I can start tweaking with this, and maybe I can do this instead. Maybe I can augment the spine of my build with this. And then what happens is you get people going, oh, but if I augment this with this, and then maybe if I tweak my spine a little bit, I'll do this. Like, that's where you get really big brain members of the Path of Exile community branching out and creating whole new metas that everybody else then follows for 3 months. Is with this forced change. But Spellslinger for league start, is that still viable? Yeah, I think so. I think go look at your favorite Spellslinger build guide and see what that guide creator has to say. Because that build guide creator has put way more time into that build than I have into their build, right? So go take a look at your favorite Spellslinger build. Go take a look. See if they've updated tonight due to the balance manifesto. And if not tonight, then give them some credit. It might be who knows what time in the world where they are, right? Path of Exile is a global game, so you never know where somebody is at. So give them until tomorrow and check back during patch notes and check back on Wednesday and see, okay, is this build guide that I like to follow for Spellslinger dead? Is this build guide creator who I trusted to get me through a build guide, are they saying it's dead? Because a whole bunch of people can say, oh, this is dead. Yeah, how much Spellslinger have you played? Like, if you're just looking at it and going, yeah, well, 20 to 30% is a big number, there's a whole lot of numeric changes that happen every single patch cycle. Guys, they've been trying to kill Necro, supposedly, for 3 leagues. For 3 leagues. And it hasn't been killed. Supposedly, Necro's been tried to be killed for 3 leagues. Hasn't been killed. Has it been removed as the dominant meta slave, everybody's blindly, sheeply playing it? Well, actually, no. Necromancer is an ascendancy, no. Summoner, yes. People aren't just blindly playing summoners anymore. People are having to put thought into actually playing summoners. But Necromancer is an ascendancy, no. Since 3.9 came out, everyone's been playing Necro. Like, Necro has had a dominant position in the meta. Yeah, remember Zombies Are Dead, guys? Remember Zombies Are Dead? Every single league we've had to say that. Zombies are dead. And then 3 weeks into a league, somebody's got a video. Hey, watch me take out Shaper in like X amount of minutes using zombies. Hey, watch me take out Sirius Awakener at level 8 with just zombies in X amount of minutes. Hopefully carrying golems will be untouched. The vicious bite changes could be ugly. Yeah, you're right, Crypto. No, I'm with you. Elementalist, I feel like Elementalist needs one more golem ascendancy. I've played 2 Golemancers now over the last 2 years. One of them during Harvest. And I'm with you. I've hopefully golems will be fine. But I feel like your Uber ascendancy just does not matter. Elementalist Stone Golem starter? Yeah, maybe. That you might. Don't be shocked if you see that, either from me or from other content creators and community discussion hosts. I just don't think there's anything that's like you come up here, you're like woohoo, and it's like, what do you do with the rest of your ascendancy? A lot of people will come over here and grab Paragon, so that way you cannot take reflected elemental damage, but it's like you're not doing any damage anyway. You're not going to kill yourself anyway with reflected damage. So Elementalist, I feel, could really use some extra support over here for this. To be the Golemancer. Like, if you want... See, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Grinding Gear game, or here's a problem. I shouldn't say the problem. Grinding Gear games, when they took off a whole bunch of specific skill-related stuff from the Necromancer, they said, hey, we want to put more of this stuff, like skeletons and zombies and specter support. We want to put more of this stuff on the passive tree. So they took it off of the Necromancer. They threw some of it on the passive tree. Partly because as a design, they wanted to make it so that way ascendancies, in theory, would open up more different types of gameplay. And it's proven true with the Necromancer. The Necromancer right now, you can play it with almost any sort of build and it'll do great, right? There's a whole bunch of different types of builds that do great with the Necromancer. Because they took off some very specific skills from the Necromancer and they added some very more generalized skills. So even while we're talking about, hey, we hope that golems are doing fine, and we're saying, hey, maybe the elementalist could use one or two more golem specific ascendancy nodes. Even as we say that, it's far more likely, based on their previous behavior, that grinding gear games would say, you know what, we're just going to take this +1 maximum number of golem stuff, we're going to take the golem specific stuff off of elementalist, and we'll make it some generic thing like that has to do with, you know, you and your allies. And then 6 months after they did that, we would see some weird passive tree where like elementalists are now some kind of support meta. Right? Like that could be a thing. So I'm just saying that's similar to what happened with Necromancer, right? They took a bunch of the skill specific stuff for playing a summoner off of the Necromancer ascendancy, and that's fine. They've added a whole bunch of different, you know, builds that can run with this. But then you look over here and you're like, this is still really specific for Golemancers. So if they did change this, rather than adding more stuff for Golemancers, they'd probably be far more likely to take this stuff off, replace it with other different stuff, and then just throw golems somewhere on the tree. Yeah, Golemancers on SSF is too much work. I agree. I played it in our private league and had a lot of people helping, and we were trading. And even still, I think I only got 4 of the jewels. I think I got 4 of the jewels. It was still really tough. I actually got Primordial Harmony in our SSF league. It actually dropped. I turned in the Delve card. That was actually that was probably my favorite moment of our private league, of the G3 private league was getting the Primordial Chain from a Div card turn in. It was exactly what I needed for that build, and I got it. It was a really, really cool moment. So I enjoyed it. I greatly enjoyed that moment. Kind of like tonight. I have greatly enjoyed tonight. I've greatly enjoyed our time together tonight, and I'm going to greatly enjoy our time together tomorrow night as well, as we take a look at the patch notes tomorrow night. But these particular balance notes, I don't know, I feel like I'm tempting the game. I feel like I'm taunting the game. I feel like I'm asking for trouble. But I look at these and I go, okay, these are okay changes. Like some of them I have questions about the philosophy behind it. But I feel like this is okay. Scott says around the same time tomorrow night. Yeah, same time, same place. So, shameless plugs as we wrap up here. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about future video discussions just like this one. Also, you can join our Discord, which there are join links down below in the video description if you'd like to be pinged whenever we go live on Twitch or whenever we're hosting live discussions or whenever one of our videos comes out. We tag everybody with that. But also, all of the information for the G3 bank is also available over there on the G3 Discord. So so far it looks like we've had 18 responses, and it is up and live. So go make sure you grab your registration. For those of you wondering what the heck this is, just go read it. Okay, just go read. What we do is we have a whole bunch of people who come together and we work on trading and economics together. And essentially what you do is you invest in the bank, and then the bank pays you out at a 10 to 20% rate of what you put in. So I'll leave you to go read more about that, but you can read more about that either over on our Discord server or on our Patreon page. Speaking of which, I have neglected to say thank you to our Patreon supporters. So thank you so much to all of our Patreon supporters who support the channel so generously. And I've got to say, the guild is at max size, and it would not be at max size if it wasn't for Patreon supporters. So Patreon supporters have directly funded and supported the growth of the G3 guild in order to be at max size in terms of what the guild number support of roster is at and is allowable in Path of Exile. I would love it if someday Grinding Gear Games came out and said, hey, here's a whole bunch of guild features including raising the guild limit cap. I think it's ridiculous that we can raise and have continued to raise the private league cap, but we haven't raised the guild cap. I think the technology is there, and it's okay that it's a microtransaction in game. We're all willing to pitch in for that. So GGG, shut up and take my money. We would love to be able to raise that guild cap because we're at 250, and oftentimes we have to purge those roles because we've got new Patreon supporters and new players who are looking to join our guild every single league. So I would love it if we could expand that, and I would love it if someday they would announce that, hey, there's a bunch of guild features that are coming out. Other shameless promos. Again, thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. We are also streaming now over on Twitch as well. So if you would like to follow us over on Twitch, we're doing a thing that is called 30 games in 30 streams. That's been our variety content while we've been waiting for Path of Exile Heist to launch. And so we've been playing 30 different games that were picked and pooled from over 160 games. I think it was actually close to 170 games that were suggested here on YouTube or in Discord or live on Twitch for us to play. And then we narrowed that down to 30 games. The total cost of the project, if none of the games were on sale, was something like $600. And tomorrow we will be playing game 15 out of 30. So tomorrow we will mark halfway through that variety streaming challenge. And then we will take a break streaming variety content on Twitch, and we'll get back to streaming Path of Exile stuff over on Twitch. So we'll be doing gameplay basically over on Twitch as live streams, and then right here on YouTube is where we will continue to feature our in-depth discussions. Some of them are more in-depth than others, like tonight. Is tonight more in-depth or less in-depth? I don't know. I'll leave that to you guys to decide. But thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and ding the bell before you're out. And then we will see you tomorrow for all of the shenanigans, all of the hype, and all of the tears that will come with patch notes. I hope 3.12 Heist League is the league. A Mirror of Calandra drops for you.